With the combination of trash talk and high emotions, the NBA has seen plenty of fights throughout its many years of history. Some of these fights you'd think would easily get a player ejected and suspended, were nothing more than a foul and viewed as not too serious. However, there was once a fight where a single punch changed the lives of two players and the NBA forever. Welcome to NBA Insider. During the 1980s and 1990s, the NBA was used to seeing fights break out on a nightly basis, with teams like the New York Knicks, Chicago Bulls, Indiana Pacers, and of course the bad boy Detroit Pistons contributing to the battles. Things were so tense and physical during the NBA's earlier years that fights became a common practice before, during, and even after nationally televised games. One of the more memorable fights in NBA history was, of course, when the Detroit Pistons and Indiana Pacers fought in a battle that would later on become known as the Malice in the Palace. However, what if I was to tell you that there was once a fight that had an equally or even greater impact on the league than the Malice in the Palace? On this one night, a single confrontation changed the lives of two NBA players forever. Our story takes place back in December 9th of 1977. The Los Angeles Lakers and the Houston Rockets were battling it out on the court during a regular season game. During the second half of the game, a fight had broken out after Houston's Kevin Coonard and Los Angeles' Kermit Washington both went up for the rebound. Their battle for the rebound was more physical than usual. Noticing this, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar became involved and attempted to wrestle the ball away from Coonard. Despite this double team, Coonard would win the ball and begin a fast break for the Houston Rockets. However, in order to prevent him from joining the fast break and getting back on offense quickly, Kermit Washington decided to grab Kevin by his shorts. In an attempt to get free, Coonard accidentally threw an elbow that hit Washington on the upper arm. Looking back at the incident, Kermit Washington, several other Lakers, and even the Houston Rockets forward at the time, Robert Reed, insisted that Coonard then turned around and punched Washington with the first swing. Seeing this, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar decided to run up behind Coonard and grab his arms in an attempt to cool down the situation. During this time, Washington had apparently hit Coonard with a punch in the head and brought him down on one knee. What happened next would forever burn in the memories of these two players and the NBA forever. During the heat of the moment, out of the corner of his eye, Kermit Washington saw a figure in a Rocket uniform rushing towards him. That player was Rudy Tomjanovich. Rudy was a 29-year-old all-star forward for the Houston Rockets. From a distance, he had noticed the fight take place and ran up right behind Washington in an attempt to break it up and provide assistance to his teammate. Not knowing that he intended to break up the fight, Washington turned and delivered a nearly fatal right-hand punch to Tomjanovich's face. The crazier part about this was the fact that the punch was doubled in impact since Tomjanovich was running full speed towards Washington. Following the punch, the arena immediately became filled with the silence of thousands of shocked fans with looks of disbelief on their faces. It would later on be recalled as the loudest silence you have ever heard. However, the one thing that was not silent by any means was the sound of Washington's fist colliding with Rudy's head. His neck had instantly snapped back, causing his head to smash on the floor. Kareem Abdul-Jabbar would later on compare the sound of the punch to the likes of a watermelon being dropped on concrete. As a matter of fact, reporters who were at the game heard the sound of the punch all the way on the second floor. It made sense, considering the fact that the 26-year-old Kermit Washington was a 6'8" power forward who weighed 240 pounds, mostly muscle, and was believed by many to be the strongest man in the league at the time. So a punch from him was no joke. In fact, the strength of his punch would later be compared by the same impact of being thrown from a car going 50 miles per hour. Rudy Tomjanovich himself recalled the punch being so powerful that while the Houston Rockets trainer was holding a piece of cloth on his face to prevent the blood from gushing out, he asked the trainer, "What happened? Did the scoreboard fall on me?" In which the trainer replied, "No, Kermit hit you." After spending a couple of seconds on the hardwood floor, Tomjanovich was able to get up and walk around. The game would resume, and following its conclusion, Tomjanovich's eye was black and his jaw was wired shut as he spoke to reporters after the incident. On his way into the locker room, Rudy saw Kermit Washington and asked why he punched him. The two would get into a verbal argument before being broken up by security. Little did Rudy and Kermit know that trailing that altercation, their lives would never be the same. Following the incident, Rudy was immediately rushed to the hospital where he would fight for his life. Doctors would later discover a long list of injuries he had acquired, including a fractured skull, detached bone structure from the skull, a cerebral contusion, as well as a broken jaw, nose, and leaking blood and spinal fluid. His skull fracture was so deadly that Rudy Tomjanovich could taste the spinal fluid leaking from his brain and into his mouth. The chief surgeon in charge of his operation compared the complexity of his injuries as if it was like piecing together a badly shattered eggshell with scotch tape. After gradually undergoing a difficult series of operations to rebuild his face, the Houston Rockets forward would eventually recover. Despite being sidelined for 5 months, Rudy would make a return to the league and would even go on to make an all-star appearance just 2 years later. His career, on the other hand, would never be the same. Unfortunately for him, the punch was captured in a video clip and began to surface to the media, being shown countless times. Because of this, rather than to go down in the NBA books as the player who had an average of 17.4 points, 8.1 rebounds, earned 5 All-Star Game selections, and was the third leading scorer in Rockets history behind Hall of Famers Calvin Murphy and Akeem Olajuwon, Rudy Tomjanovich would simply be remembered as the man who was punched that fateful night. In 1981, while still in his mid-30s and after years of alcoholism, Rudy retired from the NBA. On the other hand, following the punch that shattered Rudy Tomjanovich's jaw and caused him life-threatening injuries, Kermit Washington entered a living hell. Following this incident, the NBA commissioner at the time, Larry O'Brien, who had already been worried about the growing number of fights and the potential for serious injury, immediately suspended Washington for 60 days and fined him $10,000. Washington's 60-day suspension, which was the longest suspension for any on-court incident in NBA history, caused him to miss 26 games. Aside from the league, the media and fans were all out for Washington's head as well. He began receiving hundreds of letters, all filled with racial slurs and tormenting words. Washington also began having nightmares in which he would be convicted by a judge for murder. As if that wasn't bad enough, the Houston Rockets were furious and felt that if Tomjanovich would have to miss the rest of the season, then Washington should face the same punishment. The management of Kermit Washington's team made no move to defend him, nor did anyone from the Lakers. He was all alone. In the years that followed, Washington, along with the Lakers, was sued by Tomjanovich, in which he roughly won $3 million in a Houston court. And sure, it's true that basketball was a tougher, more physical game back then, but since that one punch, the NBA and other professional sports organizations began cracking down on fighting with penalties for the players. As of 2010, any player who attempts to punch another, even if he misses, is automatically ejected and suspended for at least his team's next game. After the season, the league even added a third referee to its game crew to stop such fights from starting in the first place. Rudy Tomjanovich would later become the successful coach of the Houston Rockets, leading them to NBA titles in 1994 and 1995. He also coached the 2000 Olympic team to winning a gold medal. Rudy had also long forgiven Kermit and now even calls him a friend as well as a brother. Washington, on the other hand, has still struggled to leave the punch behind. His NBA career faded in 1977, and despite his resume filled with positive credentials, that one negative remains. His life began to spiral so much out of control that in June 2016, he entered a plea of not guilty on charges of corrupt interference with tax laws, conspiring to commit wire fraud, falsification of records, and aggravated identity theft. As if that wasn't bad enough, he recently pleaded guilty to spending thousands of dollars on jewelry, vacations, and other personal items from money donated to an African charity he organized. Because of this, he could be facing up to 8 years in prison. Although he was a solid NBA player who played 10 NBA seasons with 5 teams from 1973 to 1982 and 1987 to 1988, Kermit Washington will be remembered most for his infamous punch of Rudy Tomjanovich, and his career will forever be shaded by the ugliest on-court incident in NBA history.